In the early 2000s, London's district of Soho was home to a number of clip joints, establishments posing as adult entertainment venues with hostesses enticing male customers inside. The unsuspecting customers would then be presented with extortionate bills after spending just moments conversing with the hostess, often with threats made by the club's bouncers. In 2004, an angry customer returned to a clip joint shortly after being conned and proceeded to stab the 23-year-old hostess that had convinced him to enter the building. Despite the murderer's movements following the attack being caught on CCTV, police were unable to identify the suspect. Welcome to the Crime Portal. This is the case of Camille Gordon. For decades, clip joints were a common scam in major UK cities such as Manchester, Birmingham, and of course London. These establishments portrayed themselves as strip clubs or brothels, luring in men with the promise of drinks, erotic entertainment, or female companionship. However, once inside, customers were subjected to misleading charges and sometimes outright threats to extract large sums of money. The venues employed hostesses that would take it in turns standing on the street in revealing outfits to entice passing men inside for a small fee so that they could be conned. Once inside, after spending a few minutes talking with a hostess in a private room, the unwitting punter would be presented with a bill for hundreds of pounds by one of the establishment's bouncers. If customers questioned the bill or refused to pay, they were met with intimidation, sometimes even physical threats. At their peak, there were dozens of clip joints in London alone, thriving in areas where tourists, businessmen, and unsuspecting passers-by could easily be targeted. A primary reason clip joints survived for so long was their ability to exploit legal loopholes. They typically didn't serve alcohol, allowing them to avoid strict licensing laws and inspections. Some registered as private members clubs, which meant they could set their own pricing policies whilst refusing refunds. Owners also used contracts and small print to justify excessive charges, and if customers complained to the police, the dispute was often dismissed as a civil matter rather than fraud. A hotspot for London's clip joints was Soho, historically known for its nightlife, adult entertainment, and vice-related businesses. One such establishment was located at No. 7 Archer Street, which lies directly behind the iconic Apollo Theatre. In 2004, this particular clip joint was known as the Blue Bunny Club. At the time of recording in 2025, the building operates as an ice cream shop by the name of Jalupo and is unrecognisable when compared to its seedy past, which was once the scene of a vicious murder. One of the Blue Bunny's hostesses in 2004 was 23-year-old Camille Gordon. Camille was born in the early 1980s on the Caribbean island of Jamaica. She was close with her sister, Debbie, 1 year her senior, and mother Doet. Camille had ambitions of becoming a teacher. In 2001, at the age of 20, Camille made the decision to emigrate from her native Jamaica to the UK in the hope of obtaining a better education. Initially, Camille lived with an aunt in Handsworth, an inner-city area of Birmingham. She quickly began working as an assistant at various nurseries across the city, whilst attending classes in early years development and care at Handsworth College. Around a year after she arrived in the UK, Camille decided to relocate to London and began living with a cousin in Croydon. Camille was unable to make ends meet working in nurseries within the capital, and it wasn't long before she began looking for ways to supplement her income in the city's restaurants, clubs, and bars. In December 2003, she was offered a job at Soho's Blue Bunny Club. Confident, approachable, and attractive, Camille was popular with customers and colleagues alike. A former colleague named Tanika Kelly would go on to tell the Evening Standard newspaper, quote, "When I started working in a clip joint, all the girls were horrible except for Camille, who took me under her wing. She was the most beautiful girl I had ever met." Another former colleague told the same newspaper how it wasn't long before Camille began earning good money in the role. Speaking anonymously to The Guardian in 2004, the owner of one Soho clip joint offered an insight into how much the establishments could make. Quote, "Depending on how much we reckon we can take the punter for, it goes from a few £100 to £600. The girls walk out with £300 to £400 for a shift, and the club can make £2,000 on a good day." Despite working at the Blue Bunny Club, Camille had by no means given up on her ambition of working with children, and was waiting to enroll on a course that would lead to an early years qualification, the next step required to become a nursery school teacher. But sadly, Camille would never get the chance to fulfill her dream. On Monday, the 1st of March 2004, Camille spent the morning in London with a man she knew from her time in Birmingham. After which, the man drove Camille back to her address in Croydon. Camille was working at the Blue Bunny Club that evening and was sitting outside of the club at around 6:20 p.m. when she struck up a conversation with a passing man, eventually managing to entice him inside the establishment. The man was in his mid-20s. He was black and stood at around 5 feet 6 to 5 feet 8 inches tall. After the pair walked down the stairs of the Blue Bunny and into the club's bar area, the man paid an entry fee of £5 before being led to a back room. After spending around 10 minutes talking, a male bouncer entered and presented the unsuspecting client with a bill for £375. The customer was understandably confused and annoyed by this, and after a brief discussion, it was agreed that he could pay £80 before being escorted from the premises. The man headed towards Rupert Street and was seen making a call on his mobile phone. A short time later, the man once again approached the Blue Bunny and noticed another hostess was now outside. According to the Metropolitan Police, the man raised his hands in a submissive manner before leaving once again in the direction of Rupert Street. Shortly after 7 p.m, Camille was standing in the doorway of the club when the man returned for a third time. His pace quickened as he approached the 23-year-old before plunging a knife into her chest. Camille let out an agonizing scream before the man removed the knife and took off. Alerted by the commotion, staff members at the Blue Bunny rushed to find Camille staggering down the stairs and bleeding heavily. Paramedics soon arrived at the scene and transported her to University College Hospital, but sadly, attempts to save her life were unsuccessful. Camille was pronounced dead at 8:25 p.m. that evening. A post-mortem would go on to conclude the cause of death was a single stab wound to the heart. Camille's family in Jamaica were informed of the tragic news. Her mother Doet would later tell the Evening Standard, quote, "We didn't know she was doing this sort of work. She was a wonderful, happy, upbeat kind of person who loved to dance and made so many people happy." Floral tributes lined the shutters outside of the Blue Bunny Club, which was immediately closed after the murder to allow police to begin forensic examination. However, there are no reports of viable evidence being recovered. After speaking to witnesses both inside and outside of the club, investigators focused on the theory that Camille was murdered by the disgruntled customer. Despite only having a basic description of the man, there was one thing that stood out. On the night of the attack, he was wearing a distinctive jacket, displaying the name of the Cleveland Indians Major League Baseball team on the front, with their logo on the left sleeve. It is widely accepted that London is the most watched city in Europe when it comes to CCTV cameras. A study from 2002 estimated there were 4.2 million CCTV cameras across the UK, with 1 in 8 believed to be in the English capital. In other words, over 500,000 cameras. Using this to their advantage, investigators began reviewing footage captured in the area, looking for the man in the distinctive jacket, and it wasn't long before they were able to establish his movements after administering the knife wound that ended Camille's life. He was captured running down a street towards Piccadilly Circus tube station, less than a quarter of a mile from the Blue Bunny Club. Cameras inside the station also caught the man, who headed south on the Bakerloo line. Still images were released to the public a week after the murder, in addition to images of pedestrians that police wanted to trace. Information was also released by Met Police concerning an individual who claimed to have knowledge about the killing. On Wednesday, the 3rd of March 2004, 2 days after Camille was murdered, a man walked into Kennington Police Station and asked to speak with an investigator about the murder at the Blue Bunny Club. The officer on desk duty went to find an investigator, but when he returned, the man was nowhere to be seen. The only details given about this individual were a brief description of his appearance. A white man, roughly 5 feet 8 inches tall, skinny build, defined cheekbones and light brown hair. He was never traced. Investigators were in a unique position. They had footage of the man they were certain killed Camille, but by May of 2004 they were no closer to identifying him. In an attempt to bring the case to a nationwide audience, an appeal was made on the BBC's Crime Watch programme that month. During the reconstruction of events which took place on the night of Camille's murder, the actor playing the suspect has an English accent. The suspect's nationality does not appear to have been publicly confirmed, but given that he interacted with several witnesses, this would appear to suggest the individual was in fact English. Camille's mother and sister both appeared on the programme, pleading with the public for assistance. An e-fit of the suspect was shown, as well as a jacket identical to the one that he wore on the night of the murder. It was noted by presenter Nick Ross that Met Police had to source the jacket from the United States, indicating it was not only distinctive, but also incredibly rare in the UK. Sadly, no new information came to light as a result of the programme, and the investigation began to stall, prompting a reward of £20,000 being put up for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Camille's killer. This too did little to assist the investigation, and the case, sadly, went cold. Camille's murder is one of many violent incidents within London's clip joints that highlighted the dangers hostesses and unsuspecting customers were exposed to. Coincidentally, the day before the killing took place, a multi-agency campaign to dismantle such establishments within the English capital was launched. This included collaboration between fire, police, council, immigration, and inland revenue units. As the shady practices employed by clip joints were not technically illegal, instead, authorities focused their efforts on identifying flaws within the establishments, such as fire code violations, employment breaches, financial irregularities, and safety hazards. The plan was essentially to harass and frustrate the businesses into closure. Although this initiative was unable to save Camille from her attacker, the news was welcomed by her sister Debbie, who told the Evening Standard in the wake of the murder, quote, "The responsibility for this attack lies with the man who stabbed my sister, but these places are putting girls like Camille at risk. One thing that can come from this is that establishments like these can be closed down for good." By 2007, new legislation forced these venues to register as sexual entertainment premises, subjecting them to tighter controls and regular inspections. One by one, the clip joints were shut down. What was once an open secret in the heart of the city faded into the past. In 2024, there was a renewed effort by Met Police to identify the person responsible for Camille's murder. 14 seconds of footage showing the suspect in the Cleveland Indians jacket was released, along with news of another £20,000 reward. The case was featured on the BBC's Crime Watch Live programme, with a new reconstruction and an appeal from Detective Inspector Amanda Grieg of the Met's Specialist Casework Team, who was now leading the investigation. DI Grieg made note of the unique jacket worn by the suspect, with an identical garment on display. She also urged the man who walked into Kennington Police Station 2 days after the murder to come forward. In a statement issued via the Met Police website, DI Grieg is quoted as stating, "A lot can happen in 20 years. Allegiances can change. Maybe you felt unable to talk to us at the time, for whatever reason, but you are now in a position to do so. Maybe you saw the attack, or maybe you were at the club or in the area at the time of the murder. Maybe the person responsible has confided in you. I would urge you to share whatever information you have with us. It will be treated in the strictest confidence and could bring much needed closure to Camille's family. At the time of recording in August of 2025, there have been no further updates reported in the investigation. Camille Gordon came to the UK to build a future, not just for herself, but to help others. She trained in childcare. She wanted to teach. She wanted to give something back. Instead, her life was cut short by a selfish and cruel individual because of £80. Investigators are in the rare position of having CCTV footage of the man they believe killed Camille, but without a name, that person will continue to evade justice. Someone out there remembers a friend, colleague, neighbour, or casual acquaintance that wore the killer's distinctive jacket. The knife used to murder Camille was never found, and it is unknown whether the killer had it in his possession throughout the evening, or retrieved it after initially leaving the club. Perhaps the man who visited Kennington Police Station isn't the only one with information about the murder at the Blue Bunny Club. It remains to be seen whether or not police have physical evidence that could tie a suspect to the murder, but unless the individual in the CCTV footage is identified, that will remain a mystery. Anyone with information should contact the Met's Incident Room on 020 8785 8267. The Crime Portal is a channel dedicated to exploring murder and missing persons cases. For more information on this case, or to submit a suggestion for future videos, please visit the Crime Portal website. And as always, thanks for watching.